Chapter 13. Mysteries in the Dark. Brian was wide awake now. The shock from the nightmare and the photo had chased away all his sleepiness. His heart was racing as he began to search the house for more clues. He rummaged through drawers and cupboards, looking for anything that might help him remember. He found more pictures of the woman and children, but still, they didn't trigger any memories. Then, in a dusty corner of a shelf, he found a stack of old letters. They were not addressed to him, but to someone named David. The letters were yellowed with age and the ink had faded. He opened one and read it. The letters were full of emotions, talking about love, happiness, and sometimes sadness. But who was David? And why were these letters in his house? Next, he found a diary hidden under a pile of clothes in a closet. It looked as old as the letters. He opened it cautiously. The diary was filled with entries about a woman's love for someone named David. She wrote about their time together, their dreams and plans. But there was also talk of a big argument, a turning point in their relationship. Brian felt confused and intrigued. Who is David? He tried to remember anything about David or Sarah, but his mind was a blank canvas. As he flipped through the pages of the diary, he found a torn photograph tucked between the pages. It was a picture of the woman, smiling, but half of the photo was missing. It looked like someone else had been in the picture but was now ripped out. His mind was racing with questions. What happened between Sarah and David? Was he connected to them? And most importantly, what did all this have to do with him? He sat down, holding the torn photo and the diary. The house was silent around him, but his mind was loud with thoughts. He knew he had to find out who David was and what his connection to Sarah and the children was. Chapter 14. Doubts and Uncertainties. Brian sat in the middle of his living room, surrounded by the letters, the diary, and the torn photo. He remembered what the doctors had told him in the hospital. They had said he had hallucinations because of his brain tumor. He had imagined a wife and 2 children, but they were not real. Now, Brian was confused. Were these letters, the diary, and the pictures part of his hallucinations too? It all felt so real, but the doctors had warned him that the hallucinations could happen again. He felt very unsure about everything. He looked around his house. It was quiet and felt empty. Is this another hallucination, he wondered, or is it all real? He picked up his phone. There were names and numbers in it, but he didn't recognize any of them. He thought about calling someone, but who? He didn't know if he could trust his own mind. Brian decided to try to find out more about David and Sarah from the diary and the letters. He read them over and over, looking for any clue that could help him understand. As he read, he felt connected to the stories in the letters and the diary. They were full of emotions and details about life, but he couldn't remember any of it. He thought about going back to the hospital to talk to the doctors, but he was afraid they would say he was just having more hallucinations. He felt alone and scared. He didn't know what to believe. Was his memory coming back, or was his mind playing tricks on him again? That night he couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The letters, the diary, and the torn photo were on the table next to his bed. They seemed to be calling out to him, begging him to remember. But his mind was blank. The only thing he felt was a deep sense of uncertainty. He didn't know what was real anymore. Chapter 15. Searching for Clues at Work. The next day, Brian decided to visit his workplace. He hoped that seeing his colleagues and the environment might trigger some memories. As he entered the office, he felt a strange sense of familiarity mixed with confusion. His colleagues greeted him warmly. "Brian, it's great to see you back," they said. Brian smiled, but inside, he was anxious. He wondered what kind of person he was at work. He started talking to a few colleagues. They were friendly and seemed happy to see him. Brian thought, maybe I was a nice person and a good colleague. This thought comforted him a little. His colleagues told him that he had been working at the company for 5 years. They said he was a very good programmer. "Like all computer geniuses, you're a bit quirky too," one of them joked. Brian laughed, but his mind was racing. He asked them about his private life. "Did I ever talk about a woman named Sarah? Or someone named David?" he asked. His colleagues looked at each other, puzzled. "No, you didn't really talk much about your private life. We don't know any Sarah or David," one of them replied. Brian felt a mix of relief and disappointment. Relief because it seemed like his work life was normal. Disappointment because he still had no answers about Sarah and David. He spent the day at his desk trying to remember something, but he couldn't concentrate. He kept thinking about the letters, the diary, and the photo. Who were Sarah and David? Why were there things in his house? As the day ended, he decided to take another look at the letters and the diary when he got home. Maybe there was a clue he had missed. He left the office with a heavy heart. His colleagues waved goodbye, still smiling, but Brian felt more lost than ever. He goes home deep in thought. The visit to his workplace had brought him some comfort, but also raised many questions. He knew he had to keep searching for the truth, no matter how hard that might be. Chapter 16. The Hidden Discovery. Brian woke up late the next day, feeling exhausted from the emotional turmoil of the past few days. He ate something and took his medications. After a long sleep, he felt more rested and calmer than before. With a clearer mind, he decided to go through everything he had found once again, hoping to uncover something new. He gathered all the letters and the diary, sitting down to read them more carefully this time. He noticed that the letters had no addresses on them, suggesting they weren't sent through the post. They were love letters, filled with affection and signed only with first names. Turning his attention to the diary, Brian realized some pages were missing. The entries stopped abruptly after mentioning a big argument with no further details. Like the letters, the diary didn't include any last names or addresses. Feeling a renewed sense of purpose, Brian stood up to search the house again, more thoroughly this time. He started in the living room, methodically examining every corner, but found nothing. He moved to the kitchen with the same result. Next, he went to the bedroom, determined to leave no stone unturned. He emptied the wardrobe, searching through every piece of clothing. Yet he found nothing significant. Exhausted, Brian sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall. He was deep in thought, his head bowed in frustration. That's when something caught his eye. A part of the back panel of the wardrobe seemed loose. Curious, Brian stood up slowly. His heart was pounding as he reached out and removed the loose panel. He couldn't believe what he saw hidden behind it. The story will continue. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.